Okay, she says she's applying for a long stay visa for next year. She'll be working remotely for a UK company while she's in France. Her question is, how does the tax work after 183 days? Where will she be tax liable? I'm sort of a bit off the subject of visas, but...
Well, no, it isn't, because it's really key for your carte de séjour renewability. So for your carte de séjour, the Willy Wonka's golden ticket is a tax return.
I'm going to quote you on that one as well.
Yes, you can. And so not many people know, but you can do a non-resident tax return and a residence tax return. Okay, so many people are scared of France because of taxes. I think I'm going to steal Fabien's one on this, but the richest man in the world actually lives in Paris. He's the director of LVMH, and he lives there full time. So that does mean that there are solutions around that. I don't think it's just his love of France. But the point being is that in France, there's dual taxation treaties with most English-speaking countries. In fact, with any countries where there's economic development, usually there's a dual taxation treaty. So whilst it is true that from January to December, if you spend more than 183 days, you automatically become a tax resident. You can have dual tax residency. In the case of anyone, whether you receive a pension, whether you do this, you're going to have to do a tax return. Whether you choose to do that tax return as a resident or non-resident is, one topic. It depends on how much time you spend in the country. But you could be made, so these are questions that often come to me, and so I have to have, an awful lot of knowledge on this topic. But I could be a business guy that lives in France permanently. This is my only home, but I travel a lot for work. So I spend less than 183 days. I'm like Bettina, I think, that works remotely. So I'm working remotely. I spend less than 183 days. My money is earned and my taxes are paid in the UK or the USA, but I would still be held to do a non-resident tax return, really, where I wouldn't be taxed. I'd just be telling the French government, I've earned $100,000 in the US or in the UK. Here's my tax return. It's all been paid. And I've earned zero money in France. Or if you've been renting out your room as a gîte, you've earned €1,000. So you'd only be taxed on the money that you've actually earned in France. And in this case, if it's remote working, that money wasn't earned in France. The rules of remote working are clear. You work for your company that has no economic interest in France. You remain an employee of that company. You remain paid in the account in the country in which you perceive your salary. You continue to declare taxes in that country. And you, on top of that, declare a resident or non-resident tax return in France, depending on the time spent in France. You're allowed to do that. The only times where this becomes a little bit of a grey area is if you are a director of your own company with no employees and you keep your company in the UK and you're living in France full time. And from an accountancy point of view, not from a visa law point of view, accountants would maybe say to you, that's not right because your legitimacy of space is where you are. So that wouldn't need to be done straight away, but you would want to consider that and change it over. But if you're just working for a UK business, you're working for a company that's only exists in the UK, and you're still on that payroll, that's all good. You can stay on that long stay visa be renewed to a carte de séjour visa. That income would be considered for your renewal of your carte de séjour, and it would be best considered if it's on the tax return.
Okay. Yeah. So again, it keeps coming up time and time again about just planning and preparation and thinking, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps ahead. So that I think if there's one takeaway people take from today's webinar, is probably that, is if you're thinking of moving to France, get in touch now and have those conversations.